Hello, everyone. This is your teacher Anne, and in this video, I will be discussing the key concepts of strategic cost management. Before anything else, please make sure to have your pen and paper with you so you can take down notes as we move along the discussion. Pause the video and resume when ready. The key concepts of strategic cost management are the following. First, we have the cost driver analysis, then strategic positioning analysis, and lastly, the value chain analysis. Let's examine these concepts one by one. Starting off with cost driver analysis. Before we begin to understand the concept of cost driver analysis, let's recall what is a cost driver. Accountants usually define cost as a resource that we sacrifice or consume, or the opportunity that we have given up or forgone to achieve a specific objective. It is usually measured as the monetary amount that must be paid to acquire goods and services. All costs incurred by an organization result from activities that are pursued by the organization. We have this essential theme for our organization, which we call Know Your Organization's Costs. Thus, cost concepts are relevant only if they influence a decision, and cost data are relevant only if they are useful to a cost concept. It is well known in an industry that a company can manage what it can measure, just like in our real lives. Unfortunately, some companies may not identify their costs precisely. Determining how costs behave and best cost structure will be very difficult. Managers need to understand how costs behave and what cost structure is for a certain organization to make informed decisions about their products, their processes, and resources to plan and to evaluate performance. So, what does it mean to say that an organization understands its costs? It means that the organization's managers can predict with some clarity how costs will respond to management actions. In other words, it means managers can predict how cost will change, if at all, when they direct the organization to do something differently than what is being currently done today. To say an organization understands its costs implies that the managers understand the underlying cause and effect relationship between the work of the organization and the costs of the organization. So, cost driver is a characteristic of an activity or event that causes that activity or event to incur costs and can be more or less under a firm's control. In other words, factors that causally affect costs are called cost drivers. That is, a cause and effect relationship exists between a change in the level of activity and a change in the level of the total costs of that cost object. So later on, we will learn about the types of cost drivers, the traditional and strategic views of cost drivers, the basic outline of cost drivers, ways of identifying cost drivers, and the benefit of determining cost drivers. So let's look at how our views on cost drivers have changed over time. The following are the traditional views of cost drivers. First, this one is according to author Rummel, which was published in 1949. So if you notice here, the list of cost drivers, we have factor consumption, arrangement of brakes, lot size, performance, evaluation of factor consumption, and the production rate. The list of cost drivers, according to the author Rummel in 1949, is constrained only on the production area. Second one, this is also one of the traditional views of cost drivers. This is the cost driver system according to the author Gutenberg, and this was published in the year 1979. So Gutenberg said that every change in the output volume, in the plant size, and in the production program leads to a change in the factor qualities and or factor proportions. Therefore, change in the cost level. This means that from the five cost drivers, you can see here we have five cost drivers. From the five cost drivers, the output volume, the plant size, and the production program as are considered as great cost drivers. However, despite this, the output volume remains the central cost driver in the production and cost theory. Another traditional view about cost drivers was from the author Kilger, which was popularized in 1993. So, like others, the author Kilger also emphasized that output volume is the most important cost determination factor in the industrial companies. However, despite it being an important factor, the system of Kilger considers a network of cost determination factors, and he showed the complicated mutual relations between these factors. So you can see here that the decisions on sales, production, and purchasing affect the factors of consumption, which then ultimately affect cost. So, what do you think is the focus of the traditional views of cost drivers? The traditional views of cost drivers concentrate on production activities and manufacturing costs. And this type of view, the traditional view, overlooks the impact of other activities, such as upstream and downstream activities on the company's cost position. These activities actually have considerable effects on the company's cost position. Additionally, many cost drivers that determine the long term cost position of a company are arising from the competitive business environment. Hence, in today's competitive business environment, to achieve a major cost advantage, an organization must focus not only on the traditional cost drivers, but also on strategic cost drivers. The strategic view of the cost drivers focuses on the whole value chain and on the cost drivers, which determine the long term cost position of a company. Let's now look at the strategic views of cost drivers this time. In 1998, Porter introduced his system of cost drivers to overcome the strong production orientation of the traditional views of cost drivers. In opposite to most of the former approaches, Porter concentrates on the strategic level. He used the value chain as a basic idea in his considerations about cost drivers. Porter emphasized that the value activities the firm performs in competing in an industry result in the behavior of a firm's costs and its relative cost position. Therefore, cost advantage results if the firm achieves a lower cumulative cost of performing value activities than its competitors. The list of cost drivers by Porter has made an important contribution to the research of the cost drivers. He has presented one attempt to create a comprehensive list of cost drivers, particularly long term drivers, through using the value chain as a basic idea. The authors Shank and Govindarajan presented another list of cost drivers. In their work, they argued that the basic concept of strategic cost drivers is to get away from the notion that volume only drives cost. In strategic cost management, cost is caused by a multitude of factors that are related to each other in complex ways and not just output volume. They broke the list of cost drivers into two categories, and these are your structural cost drivers and executional cost drivers. The first category is called structural cost drivers and deals with the following strategic choices: economies of scale, how big an investment to make in facilities for research and development, manufacturing, and marketing. You have the scope, the degree of vertical integration, as well as horizontal integration, experience. How many times in the past the firm has already done what it is doing now? Technology. What process technologies are used at each step of the firm value chain? Are these technologies state of the art? And lastly, we have complexity. How wide a line of products or services we offer to the customers. The second category of cost drivers is called executional cost drivers. And these cost drivers constitute determinants of a successful cost position. The most important executional cost drivers include the following: workforce involvement or participation, workforce commitment to continuous improvement, TQM or total quality management. These are beliefs and achievement regarding our product and process quality. Capacity utilization, given the scale choice on plant location. Product configuration, is the design or formulation effective? Exploiting linkages with suppliers and customers in the firm's value chain. And plant layout efficiency, how efficient against current norms is our current plant layout. Executional cost drivers are determinants of a firm's cost position that hinge on its ability to execute successfully. They are linked to efficiency, and the more cost drivers identified, the more likely it is to improve satisfaction. In contrast, the structural cost drivers have no direct linkage with efficiency, and the number of cost drivers identified does not demonstrate a link to improving satisfaction. There are many studies that discuss different lists of cost drivers actually. But whatever cost drivers are on the list, the key ideas are as follows. For strategic cost management, output volume is usually not the most useful factor or driver to understand the cause and effect relationship between cost and behavior to explain the cost behavior. Then, second, in a strategic sense, it is more useful to examine the structural and procedural activities and their cost drivers that may explain a cost position and shape the firm's competitive position. Then, the last key idea is that a company should be fully aware that cost drivers are not equally important all the time, but some are very probably more important in many cases. One of the keys to strategic cost management is the determination of the appropriate cost drivers. By identifying the key cost drivers or the cause of the cost, strategic cost management not only tells managers where to start, but also what to start on. By identifying cost drivers and quantifying their effect on costs where possible, Strategic cost management again provides relevant and meaningful information. This process may not be easy, however, there are a number of ways that can be used to identify the key cost drivers. First, by examining the basic economics of activity. In some cases, the cost drivers of activity may be clear from the knowledge obtained from carefully examining its basic economics. For example, the product design and development activity determines product attributes such as functional capacities, appearance, reliability, and product lifespan. Second way of identifying cost driver is by examining the internal experience of the company. This way is more useful, especially if the events within the company have changed over time because of a new method of production, new design of product. If we are now able to operate multiple units, if we had a change of product mix, and so on. So, in this case, historical cost information may enable a company to accurately estimate the shape of the relationship between the costs and activities. For example, the relationship between the change in the product or process design and costs, the relationship between the changes in product mix and costs. Also, cost levels at different scale of output in the past periods may throw some light on economies. If a company sells in several geographic regions or manufactures in several plants, differences among cost levels in these situations can help to explain cost drivers. The third way to identify cost drivers is through interviews. Interviews with experts. Cost drivers can be also determined from our interviews with experts. Workers or managers who have extensive knowledge of a value activity can be asked what if questions about the effects of chaining various parameters on the cost. For example, interviews with production managers might help us determine the impact of, let's say, doubling line speed on such factors such as supplying levels, energy consumption, and output. Interviews with managers and design engineers may also help us address the impact of product design changes on the cost of the product life cycle. Then the last way of identifying cost driver, the final method, is competitive cost analysis. By calculating the competitors' relative costs of value chain activities and pinpointing their specific cost drivers, managers and accountants can understand why a company does or does not possess competitive advantage. And we can also recommend to management opportunities to improve the firm's competitive positioning. The chief benefit of cost drivers determination is that it provides relevant and meaningful information about the activities that influence the firm's cost position. These information may be used to improve the firm's cost position. A company that wants to manage its costs now looks to determine and analyze their causes. And what are these causes? These are our cost drivers. Using the cost driver approach, accountants and managers look for the events and activities that cause the costs. Okay. The second key concept in strategic cost management is our strategic positioning analysis. Strategic positioning analysis is used to determine a company's relative position within its industry. Strategic positioning reflects choices that a company make about the kind of value it will create and how that value will be created differently than its rivals. Strategic positioning analysis is concerned with impact of external and internal environment on the overall strategy of a company. It is important to take account of the future and to assess whether the current strategy is a suitable fit with the strategic position. The following factors affect the strategic position of a company. So, our strategic position is affected by our organization values, culture, and systems, our external environment, internal environment comprising of our resources and competencies. The organization values, culture, and systems is easily determinable because these are all internal information. The internal environment consisting of resources and competencies can also be determined using existing company data. For the external environment, this can be analyzed using models like PASTEL. Have you heard of PASTEL? So P for political, E for economic, S for social, T for technological, E for environmental, and L for legal. PASTEL factors. Then we can also use SWOT analysis. Remember SWOT analysis? S for strengths, W for weakness, O for opportunities, and T for threats. And we can also use Porter's five forces, which are your competitive rivalry, supplier power, higher power, threat of substitution, and threat of new entry. These topics have already been discussed in your BA subjects, so we need not discuss them here. The third and last, but perhaps the most important key concept is value chain analysis. Value chain analysis is a process by which a firm identifies and analyzes various activities that add value to the final product. The idea is to identify those activities which do not add value to the final product or service and eliminate such non value adding activities. The analysis of value chain helps a firm obtain cost leadership or improve product differentiation. Resources must be deployed in those activities that are capable of producing products valued by customers. If we apply this in our real lives, we must be able to eliminate those activities that do not help us achieve our goals and focus our energy and resources to those activities that do help us achieve our goals. The idea of value chain was first suggested by Michael Porter to depict how customer value accumulates a long chain of activities that lead to an end product or service. Porter describes the value chain as internal process or activities a company performs to design, produce, market, deliver, and support its product. The various activities undertaken by a firm can be broadly classified into primary activities and secondary activities. Primary activities are those which are directly involved in transforming inputs, which are our raw materials, into outputs, which we call finished products or finished goods, or in the provision of service. Secondary activities are also known as support activities. The secondary activities support the primary activities. Although secondary activities are not directly involved in the creation of product, it doesn't mean that they are of less importance as compared to primary activities. Primary activities include the following: inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, and service. So, for inbound logistics, these are activities concerned with receiving, storing, and distributing the inputs, which we call raw materials, to the production process. The relationship with suppliers is a key component in this process. So, for activities under operations, these activities involve transforming inputs into final product. Activities such as machining, packaging, testing, and equipment maintenance form part of operations. Then, activities under outbound logistics. These activities involve collecting, storing, and distributing the products from the factory line to end customers. This may include finished goods warehousing, delivery vehicle operation, order processing, scheduling. Then for activities under marketing and sales. Marketing and sales provide the means by which the customers are made aware of the product. The activities include advertising, promotion, distribution channel selection, sales force management, and pricing policy. Then for service, this includes activities related to after sales service like installation, repair, and parts replacement. Support activities include the following: procurement, technological development, human resource management, and firm infrastructure. Procurement involves purchasing of raw materials, supplies, and other consumables that are required as inputs for the primary activities. Technological development includes technical knowledge, equipment, hardware, software, and any other knowledge which is used in the transformation of inputs to outputs. Human resource management includes activities around the selection, recruitment, placement, training, appraisal, rewards, and promotion. We also have management development and labor or employee relations. Firm infrastructure consists of activities such as planning, finance, accounting, legal, government affairs, and quality management. So, in summary, these are the activities that are very important in performing value chain analysis. A value chain gives managers a deeper understanding of what the organization does and helps them identify key processes of the business. The various processes can be analyzed to identify those activities which do not add value to consumers. Such non value activity can be eliminated to add to the margins of the businesses as a whole. So, to recap, we have learned something about the key concepts of strategic cost management. The key concepts are cost driver analysis, strategic positioning analysis, and value chain analysis. Thank you for listening. I hope you all learned something valuable today. Till our next lesson. Bye.